Well, hello friends and followers. Here is Paragon number 2 before me. And you might ask, why is there light coming through the holes? Well, the control board is out because I'm trying to fix the non-transmit issue. And you may ask, well, how hard could that be? It's easy if you know what's wrong with it. It's not easy if you don't completely understand the circuit. Well, maybe now I can say I have authority for the moment before I forget everything I've learned about the circuit from the 1980s. Mind you, I should be learning artificial intelligence to get a decent job. But I enjoy the radios from the old times. So anyway, these aren't gonna put bread on the table, but they're fun to fix. So, why didn't it transmit? Well, transmit enable and transmit disable. You always have to have these two lines crossed, and these would run maybe out to your linear amplifier and back, and when the linear keys and your linear amplifier is ready to go, then these are ready to go, and they tell the radio to transmit, but not until then. Very handy. So at any rate, those lines go through this little board here, and we put a little crossing jack in here, just anything to cross those lines if you don't have an amplifier and you want to run it without an amplifier. So you have to do that. Anyway, so why didn't it work? Well, this little transistor here, I think is it Q17? Anyway, this little bugger here was not connected to here. The line from here to here was not connected. Why was it not connected? Well, it was operator abuse per usual on this thing, where somebody had manhandled the jacks back here, and this pad became broken off on the circuit board. So I simply put in some really thick wire, copper wire, and I bridged it to the Q13 where it goes. So I put a bridge into here, and that is mechanically stout enough because the solder ball is holding it to the circuit board. So, and I don't plan to manhandle this. I'm just going to put in some nice little dainty connections in there, some small RCA jacks that aren't huge like the ones that were in here, and call it a day. So anyway, that will most likely fix this. I haven't put the board back in, but that's probably the culprit. So I've been going crazy trying to figure out this circuit and how it works. I've spent all day, which I guess is better than applying for jobs, which is a real waste of time because you apply to LinkedIn, you apply to DICE, you apply to all these different job boards, and you get calls from Indian recruiters who talk like this, and they're really irritating. And most of the Indian recruiters are billing larger contract companies, and they simply want to take a bit of your rate or your salary, and that gets disgusting. I'm so tired of these effing Indians invading the USA and scamming regular hardworking American programmers, but it's been going on for a long time. Maybe that's why I like the radios more, because there's no Indians ripping off my salary. So anyway, yeah, when I get a job, I end up paying two contract companies. One small Indian third-party contract company knows a larger one like K-Force or Apex or one of those, and they build a larger one, and I end up losing money to two contract companies. It's like too many hands in the well, too many buckets pulling out water, but I digress. All right, so how does this work? So you're not going to get anything without this wave shaper. So I'm thinking that they double use the circuit. When you want to key this thing, you're going to key through here, and this transistor, a PNP, has to be grounded for this thing to go. So if it isn't grounded, actually if this one is not pulling pulling to ground. How does this work? That pulls this to ground, which pulls this to ground, which goes through here and pulls it to ground. It pulls this PNP to ground. My gosh, right? If that's pulled to ground, then we have a positive voltage here, and that will make this NPN fire or not. Let's see, how does this work? So this one pulls to ground. If it pulls to ground, it's going to let positive go through here. Yeah, so this pulls to ground. This becomes more positive. This conducts. If this conducts, it's pulling this to ground. Crap. And then, well, how does this work? It pulls that to ground, and then I guess this is an RC circuit here. Where's the RC? There's a C right there. I guess that's an R right there. Any rate, this has to work, and this will become more positive. If that becomes more positive, this becomes more positive, and finally we have the voltage coming from where? From the mic keying, I think. Down through here. It goes over here to TD. Now, the TD voltage, transmit, I don't know, transmit something, transmit. This is what makes it transmit. So if you don't have positive on TD, you're not going to transmit, period. And this TD voltage goes to the low-level driver board, which has then the facilities that turn on T and disable R, or turn on R and disable T. If TD is low, R is high. TD is high, then T is high. So let's look at that. So there's a big diagram at the end of this schematic, which TEN TEC nicely put together and still supplies for a Paragon. And you'll see this huge little diagram. This thing was essential today in saving my butt. So I never really even knew this was here or looked at it, but this is basically the connections for the whole radio. Anyway, what you'll see is this TD comes off the, it comes off this board here, which is the control board, which I just showed you. The control board is this little bugger bastard here, okay? So that board, and I'm sorry I'm swearing, I'm just frustrated. So that, I was swearing at the Indians today too, calling me, offering me little money for a lot of work. Just really mad at them. Okay, sorry. So this TD comes out of here in one place. There it is, TD right there. Goes into low-level driver board right there. So now we look at the schematic for low-level driver noise blanker, and that's where TD goes. It also goes, so I think, to a mixer somewhere, but for all intents and purposes, it doesn't go too many places. And now let's find the correct low-level driver board and to show you how it works. Not that you care beyond this point, but you might if you're trying to debug a no transmit situation. So where is this board? I'm looking for a low-level driver. That's not it. Be nice if I could just say low-level driver and this would paginate to that page, right? Wouldn't that be nice? I'm sure that will exist before we know it. Am I going to invent it? No, I don't work at Adobe. Okay, so I'm looking for a low-level driver board. That's not it. Okay, here it is. So this little sneaky board does a few things. It does voltage regulation for the reg voltage. It makes voltage for the lamps in front, which is pretty fancy. And here we have TD coming in here. The first thing it does is it goes into this NPN and it turns all this junk on. So all this stuff looks at the rest of the inputs and it basically figures out, am I going to transmit or receive? And basically what this does is, if TD is high, it turns this on, and anyway, receive will be receiving, and if you're in transmit, that'll be high. If you're in receive mode, that'll be high. So how does that do that? Do I know? It has to look at other inputs, I would think, and it doesn't. Okay, so then let's just trust it that if, wow, that's a lot of logic. So if TD is high, it turns this on, and that'll pull this voltage down, 13.5 volts, turns on that NPN, and it will conduct that to ground, which will make this voltage go down. Yikes. This one looks like it delays a bit. That's probably going to be conducting. And then it turns that on and that on. This I think is called a Darlington pair. And those guys, whoa, they're looking right at the middle of it. What does that mean? There'll be a 6.6 voltage drop here. That's going to be basically 13.5 coming into here, voltage divider. That'll power up this rail here. So we're still on TD. What's this one do? Okay, no, that's your transmit. So that then fires up transmit. And so where does it get its power from? From here. Okay, so that'll fire up the transmit line. So how does the R line work? The R line comes in here and it's down here. So this must be an inverse. So if transmit is, let's see, if transmit is high, this will conduct, this will, it's the same thing basically. How does that get the inverse? I'm not sure. You would think you would need the inverse, right? Not sure how and why it works, but it does. That would need the inverse. It seems like for inverse, you need PNPs usually. These are all NPNs. NPN, NPN, NPN. Okay, these are PNPs. That's a PNP. So a PNP will give you the inverse. So there's a PNP there. They're identical circuits. I don't understand how they get the inverse. I guess this must be the inverse. I don't know, man. It works. I'm never going to be a double E, am I? So that's the story there. That's how this thing works. And this T goes out to all these different boards. So does R. But the TD is a line that really, this has to go high and it keys it. If it keys it and TD's high, R goes low, T goes high. That's all you need to know. All right, so now it's time to put this bugger back together. I'm just gonna put the board back in. I'm gonna see if I have transmit. I'm guessing if I do have transmit, I'm gonna go to a bigger power supply to verify that it works. See what kind of power comes out without smoking it, and give it a whirl. See if it'll transmit sideband. So, hey man, the junker is coming along. And what did I learn from this? Mechanical problems by operator abuse. There wasn't a blown, I checked every single transistor and diode on this board and they were all good, and I couldn't figure out why it didn't work. And I finally was back tracing it and I found this thing was disconnected. Should have started there. I just didn't really suspect a mechanical error. So that was indeed the problemo amigo. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you find this interesting. Have a nice day.